In today's video, I'm going to give you a look into my frequency separation process and show you how I separate texture and color so that I can manipulate them separately in Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop, and we're going to start off with this image. In this image was the ending point of the video on blemish removal. So we're going to start here in our frequency separation. In the link in the description, I'm going to provide you with a free action for frequency separation, the original image that I first started out with, and this image here, which is where we're going to start today, that has blemish removal layers in it. So I encourage you to download the action just in case you want to know how to install it. I'm going to come up here to Actions, and right here on this menu I'm going to click and come down here to Load Actions. I'm going to go to where my action is on my file system, say Open, and there it is. And we're going to start off, because this is a 16-bit file, you know that because up here it will tell you in the file name, and also if you come up here to Image Mode, it'll say 16 bits per channel. So we're going to select the frequency separation 16-bit and press Play Selection, and I'm going to blur here. This is the Gaussian blur prompt here, but you can see there's still some skin texture here. So what you want to increase the radius until you don't see any skin texture. And I'm going to go to 30, let's say, and say OK. Here is the frequency separation layers that the action created. So you have your high frequency, which is made up of the textures of your image, and the low frequency layer here is made up of your colors of your image. So frequency separation works by separating those frequencies out. It allows us to smooth out the skin transitions. We can also work on texture as far as blemishes, but the main aim is to work on the smoothing of the skin, the actual blending of the areas of the skin where there's lighter spots and darker spots together, and you want to smooth those transitions. So for frequency separation, you're going to want to work zoomed out a little bit, whereas when we were working on blemishes we zoomed in, but you're going to want to zoom out. So again, if you press your Command or Control and hit the space bar and you drag, that is one way to zoom in and zoom out. You can hit Command plus and Command minus to zoom out that way, but you're going to want to work a little bit more zoomed out. So when you're smoothing out the skin, you're not changing the shape of the face. You have an overview of how it's looking. First, you want to get an idea of the areas we're going to work on. We're going to work on areas where there's a transition, like here, there's darker spots right here. Just areas where you can see where you need to smooth out the transition between light and dark spots on the skin. So these are the areas that you might focus on. I just made a little demonstration layer here that I'm drawing on, just to give me an idea of how I might want to plan. It just gives me a general idea of where I need to smooth out things, and I need to work on this area here. So that's the first thing, get a plan. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to work on the transitions, and we can do that with the brush tool. First, I'm going to make a new layer in between the high frequency and low frequency layers. This is the layer that I will be working on using the brush tool to smooth out the skin and those transitions. Now you can make as many of these layers as you want. You can make a layer like for the nose, just for the cheeks, and separated out that way, so it's easier to go back and make corrections or redo things you may need to do. We're going to use the brush tool. We want a soft round brush, and want it very soft actually, and we want our opacity could be 100, but our flow is going to be the key here. We want to build up the effect, so we should use a very low flow when we're working with smoothing out the skin. In our case, we might want to have our flow real low, maybe between 3, 4, 5%, just to start off with. We can change it at any time, but I recommend starting, say, 3% and then building up the effect slows. So I'm going to change my flow 3%. So again, B for the brush tool. I'm going to use my left and right arrow brackets to make my brush bigger or smaller. You can also hold down Control, Alt or Option, drag right or left to make your brush larger and smaller, and drag up and down, which will make your brush harder or softer. So I kind of want to work on this area right here. You make your brush large enough that it covers a good area. Hold Alt or Option to sample, and you brush and alternate into different areas. So see, I'm clicking above right here, clicking into the darker spot, clicking above, clicking in. So I'm sampling areas in and around the spot to try and blend it in. And as you can see, it's slowly doing it. There's before and there's after. And you want to zoom out a little bit so you can see it better. There's before and there's the after. So it's a build-up. You want to do it all at once, and you want to stay zoomed out because you want to see how the image is being changed. And again, you can move around, make my brush a little bit bigger, and we're trying to blend in these tones so that there's not as much transition between, say here, this darker spot and this lighter spot. So the technique is to sample and paint, Alt or Option to sample, paint with a low flow, and just keep on working on it and moving around. And for these big areas, make sure that you try and resize your brush, trying to blend as you go. So this is the first technique we're using. You can even go in areas where there's not too much of a transition. You just want to use this technique to kind of smooth the skin just by sampling and painting. I'm going to make another layer, another blank layer. And I'm going to call this cheek so that I know I'm working right here. So you just keep going at it. This is where you get your music going, you relax, have fun at it. Hey, if you're getting value out of this so far, hit that like button. And you just sample and paint all this, smoothing the skin. And by having your own layer over here, say I'm on the cheek layer, I can go back to it if I need to use the eraser tool to refine something. And you get the idea of the technique. And you would go to other parts of the body too. You can go into the hands, the rest of the face, and just keep working at it. And yes, it's a slow process, but I say it's relaxing. The fun part of retouching. Keep your flow low. Some people like to change it a lot. I like to keep it low. And it's starting to blend in those transitions. And just keep working at it. When you turn these layers on and off, you can see how this is working. Just keep on sampling to blend. So I'm going to keep on working here with the brush tool, trying to even everything out. Just keep sampling on both sides of the transitions. Like I say, you can make as many layers as you want in between the high frequency and low frequency. changing your brush size, sampling and painting, and you get the idea of all this. And it's really good to try and maintain the shape or the highlights that are already in the image. Unless you want a lot of work, I wouldn't get rid of all these spots, these highlights, and reconstruct everything. Just follow the highlights and shadows as they were photographed, if possible, unless somebody else is telling you to work on it a different way. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more and I'll come back. So some of the things to keep in mind when you're using the brush tool: keep up here your eyedropper. Make sure the sample size is something like 11 by 11. B, for the brush tool, make sure you're using a soft round brush. Use your opacity at 100, your flow, keep it low, say 3%. You're always painting on a layer in between the high frequency and low frequency. You can add as many layers as you want, name them so that you have certain areas that you're working on and you can go back and make any changes. Use the eraser tool to remove some of the area and then paint over it. Work zoomed out so that you can see any of the differences in technique. Is Alt or Option to sample. Have your brush size big enough for the area, and paint and sample as you go. And just work slowly and keep on blending. Let me know in the comments if you use frequency separation. Now, to refine texture, you can use the clone stamp tool on the high frequency layer. So high frequency layer is where all the texture's at. And just like for removing blemishes before, S for the clone stamp tool, make sure that your sample is on current layer and use your flow accordingly. So there's some areas here I might want to try and use the clone stamp to take care of some of this texture. So again, I'm on the high frequency layer. My sample is current, so Alt or Option to sample, and I'm taking care of some of these areas where I didn't quite like how the texture was working. So again, I'm sampling near the area where I want the texture and taking care of some of these areas where I feel they could benefit from some clone stamping. So you can still go back and make those changes to refine any of the areas where blemishes or skin texture isn't quite how you want it. There's this area up here where I might just want to take some of those lines out a little bit anyway. So I'm going to take my flow down, sample, and just see how it looks. Just smooth them out a little bit, and I don't want to take them out completely. So something like that. I have my flow at about 34 to take care of these areas. So again, pan around, see if there's any areas that you want to refine the texture, whether it be blemishes or areas of color that needs to be blended in. You can actually use the clone stamp to do that, because remember, the clone stamp makes a exact copy. So I don't see any other areas that I want to do any refining with the clone stamp, but you can go back and refine those areas where you feel like the texture needs to be changed, or you see a blemish that you didn't quite get to before. Up until now, we've used the brush tool to smooth the skin with a blank layer in between the high frequency and low frequency layers. And we've also used the clone stamp on the high frequency layer to get any textures that we want to take care of, any blending of textures and color, any blemishes, And now we're going to use another method, and it's a blurring method, and that is to further smooth transitions. So in order to use this method, click on the low frequency layer, and we're going to use the lasso tool. So that's L for the lasso tool. And one thing we want to check is to make sure that this selection is feathered enough. So if I say Q, you can see that this selection here is feathered. Up here at the top, the feather is at 18.6. So you want to make sure that it's not a hard edge. Press Q to undo that. So now we have our selection feathered, and we're on the low frequency layer. Hit Command J to make a copy of that selection. And now come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to make this blur something like 40. Say OK. So again, the technique for blurring, use your lasso tool, make a selection around an area that you want to blend. Hit Q just to make sure that it looks like it's nice and feathered. If not, you can adjust the feather for the lasso tool. Then copy that layer, Command J, come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just say OK, and merge that back together, Command E. So that is the process for blurring. And as I say, you can go through the image. You can use Shift Command F to redo the Gaussian blur that you already set, and just go through the image and blend everything that you want back into the low frequency. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to show you the before and the after. If you want to know more about Photoshop, click on this playlist here. If you haven't already, subscribe and like this video. And remember, it's never too late to learn. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.